My parents, they sit me down on my 16th birthday, the birthday I was planning a gigantic party for, and they tell me, oh no, you're not going to have a party. In fact, you're not going to live here anymore. We're going to move you in with your aunt because your sister's coming back home, and she has a baby, and we need your room for a nursery. Well, can you imagine me going from waking up on my birthday ecstatic to have a giant surprise party with all my friends, to having to move to a new school district with my aunt in the middle of the school year? I was devastated. But that's not even the craziest part. You won't believe what they told me next. I'm 16, female, and I've lived with my parents all my life along with my older sister, Margaret. We're your typical average family, but I never lacked what I needed, which was more than enough for me. Margaret, on the other hand, was spoiled by my parents, and whenever I attempted to ask for anything other than my needs, I was ignored and told to be content. I got used to the preferential treatment my parents gave their children, and even my friends noticed, but I've learned not to give too much of a thought. Some would say it was because Margaret was better than me in quite a few aspects. She was better at school, she was better at sports, and at communicating with people. I was shy, quiet, and artsy of a child, which did not impress my parents enough. Or anybody for that matter. If you put both me and Margaret into a room full of people, I was sure that most would gravitate towards her because she just had that charisma. Like with the preferential treatment, I've learned not to give too much thought as well. I haven't seen Margaret in a while, ever since she graduated college. In fact, that should be a little over a year ago. It doesn't mean that my parents still did not dote on her or check up. I can't count how many times I've caught my mom laughing with Margaret over the phone, or was it the Skype calls they had with Margaret? I've called her a few times as well, not as much as my parents though, and I can tell that she's doing okay. Well, that's enough information for me. My 16th birthday is a day away, and I've been planning for a long time. I once complained to my parents about not getting special favors like my sister, and I was actually acknowledged at that point. I really can't remember when, but it was years ago. My mom had promised that my 16th would be whatever I wanted it to be, which was something that stuck in my memory. Since the day I heard it, my birthdays were very basic. Sometimes there was cake or food and, well, the birthday song and a few friends on occasion. Like I said, I'm from an average family, so I guess that was the reason, and I wasn't upset about it, unless I compared it with Margaret's birthdays, that is. She either went on trips within the state, of course, had dinner dates, or had a party in the house. It was what made me complain to my parents in the first place, and when I got a good offer from them, I had to begin planning Margaret-like birthday party for myself. I finally settled on having a small get-together at home. It was my quiet nature at work, honestly. The thought of hosting and organizing an entire party, it was pretty nauseating enough, not to mention the anxiety of watching out to see if the guest would actually show up. There was time when I was 12 and some girls from my class came over to my home. They were looking for my sister, but I had honestly thought it was me that they had come to see. They didn't flat out tell me the truth, but I could see it on their faces. I didn't want a situation where I would invite people and they would only come because of a sister who wasn't even in the house. A smaller party or get-together would be better, and the people I planned to invite were people I could count on. We even had a plan made for my birthday, and an outing was possible as well. I was excited about my birthday until the first obstacle came, in the form of my sister and her 3-month-old daughter. I'm not even sure why Margaret came back to live with us when it sounded like she was happy whenever she was before. And when I found out that the baby was hers, I was even more confused, but she didn't question it. No, my parents did not tell me anything. I wasn't going to ask my sister, so that's all the information I have about that. Margaret had moved in 3 weeks before my birthday, and I began to do the oddest things around the house. I would get back from school and be charged with watching the baby till the dinner time. Sometimes I'd feed the baby till I went up to my room and do some studying. And on the weekends, I would be sent to the convenience store to get diapers and a few other stuff for the baby. And the babysitting hours were longer than usual. I still did my regular chores, but Margaret always seemed tired and was allowed to only do the bare minimum till my mom got back from work. As much as the arrangement made me mad, little Angela was cute enough to calm me down whenever I felt I was going to explode. She was quiet as long as she was changed and fed on time, and her presence was very, very comforting. So I just simply did not mind taking care of her. Well, yeah, that was until 2 days before my birthday. I had planned to tell my parents my plan to host a small get-together and also asked for a bit of money, just to get a few things. It was a reasonable amount, and I've even saved up to get extra. I was beyond disappointed after talking to them. I was told that I could not host a party this year because of Angela. Well, I promised that the noise would be an acceptable level to a minimum, but my parents were having absolutely nothing. So I switched to plan B, which was celebrating my birthday outside of the house. I wasn't going to bother anyone, and while it was more expensive, it was the only other option. That wasn't possible either, because there was no money for it. I even asked for a loan, thinking about doing odd jobs I would do to get the money back to them. Now that I think about it, I was so desperate to get the money from my parents, but there was really no point in begging. I was upset all throughout it, and I was glad it was a Friday night because I could not imagine leaving my house in the state I was in. A friend of mine reached out the following day, and when I told her everything, she was beyond angry on my behalf. It was sweet, and while I had somebody to share my sorrows with, it still would not change the fact that I was angry with my parents, and that I was not going to celebrate my birthday after all the waiting and planning. My friend had then suggested celebrating at her place. We would cut down on expenses and the number of people that we would invite, and then I would have the fun day I wanted to have. She had also saved up some money and was willing to lend it to me, and for the first time in hours I saw a bright, sunshine ray of hope. I was finally going to celebrate my birthday and the get-together I was longing for. The plan was to pretend to visit and stay over and celebrate till nighttime before heading back home. It was a pretty sweet plan, and I really could not wait for its execution. I almost forgot something. Margaret had gone out on the same day, and I asked my parents for a loan. I saw her come into the house all dressed up late at night when I was too upset to sleep, and when I learned that my mom had given her money to have fun with her friends, I was livid. But that was later on during a moment I will never forget. So, I'm planning for my get-together. It was smooth. 2 of my friends were in on it, so I had promised to give them the money that I had while they spent their savings on the items I asked them to help me get. I don't recall feeling that loved, and it almost made me cry. 2 people weren't related to me were going out of their way to make a birthday special, and my own family could not even care less. Altogether, there were 9 people in attendance, and there were board games, video games, and other activities to partake in, not to mention food. It was cheap, but it would have to do. Again, I could not sleep, but because of excitement instead of the initial sadness, on the day of my birthday, I made sure to do all of my chores on time, slowly counting down the hours till I have to tell my parents of the visit to my friend's place. They beat me to it, asking to speak in my bedroom, and that was when I heard the most heartbreaking news from them. I was to move to my aunt's and stay with her for some time, because my room was going to be a nursery for little Angela. My mom reasoned that I would not be stressed out with the baby and Margaret, and my dad promised that they would visit all the time. What? I think I was dumbstruck for some time, and then I started pleading and begging, but it was pointless. Even Margaret came to talk to me, but I didn't pay her an ounce of attention. I was in so much pain I had to switch off my phone because of the numerous calls that were coming in. The pain eventually morphed into anger, and the only thing I could think of was, how could they do this to me on my birthday? I ended up doing a stupid thing in my anger, and if my parents find out, I'll be at my aunt's. I'll tell you about it once it's settled somewhat, because right now I myself am conflicted about the whole situation. I really hate this family. I honestly don't know what to do right now. Update number 1. My parents are very upset with me, and they'll be visiting really soon. Even Aunt Emma is, as she's been nothing but nice to me ever since I started living with her a week ago. I made a big mistake, but in my defense, I had no idea it would blow out of proportion like this. On the day that my parents had come to tell me that I'd be moving out of the house, I was beyond upset. It was my birthday, for goodness sake, and the best they could do was tell me that I'd be leaving the only home I knew. Nothing else, and yeah, they looked sad about it, but at the point, all I could think about was, how could they do this to me? Even my own friends had pitied me. They told me not to worry about the money, and while I could see them, I wasn't going to school at the time, I made myself a promise to do it as soon as I could. Margaret had come in and tried confronting me. Like I said, I didn't acknowledge her presence, but that was not all. She had said something that forced me to speak. I don't know the words exactly, but it was something that sounded like, "One day you'll understand," or something equally ridiculous. I turned to her and yelled in her face, and I could tell that she was shocked because she was quiet with a shocked expression on her face. It's a moment now, well, that I think about a lot. And call me a terrible person, but I think it's a pretty nice memory. I've even mentioned seeing her after she had obviously gone out to have fun because she had something about learning to forfeit fun when the family needs you. The funny part about it was knowing that she didn't have any money to go out. Most likely my mom gave her some, and honestly, it would not even be surprising to me. My parents were not doing well financially, and with Margaret and Angela, it wasn't any easier for them. Margaret kept trying to get a job, but with her limited experience and the fact that she was a nursing mom, her chances were slim. My parents had graduated to feeding 5 mouths altogether, and feeding a child and a nursing mother was not easy. My Aunt Emma had reached out and decided to take care of either me or Margaret, if my parents would let her. And of course they had picked me. This story was not clear to me till I visited my aunt. She had mentioned being happy that I decided to stay with her, and when I asked her to clarify, please, I learned the truth. I would like to say I was indifferent about it, but that would be a lie. It hurt a lot, and while my aunt wasn't sure why I was upset, she noticed, and that night I ate one of the best dinners I've ever had. See, I've not lived with my aunt for a long time, but with the way that things are, I would not mind it at all. You know, she's widowed, and her only child is off in college. She told me that Caleb, my cousin, will visit during the holidays, and I don't mind it. I just really hope that he's as cool as his mom is. My aunt learned that my birthday was recent and got me a gift to my surprise. I don't think she knows what really happened on that day, and I'm not going to tell her, because she just might throw a party full of strangers or something just for me to be happy. I made sure to be a good niece, cleaning, making sure my room was always organized, and helping her out whenever I could. I started school late in the evening of the week due to finalizing preparations, but because of my aunt's help, I wasn't stressed at all. I missed my friends most of the time, and while I have someone I talk to at school, it's really not the same as having all your friends. Well, a few days ago, my parents called saying they're coming to visit. I wasn't even ecstatic about their visit, which says a lot to this point, but there was something off about their tone. And after pestering my aunt to find out what the problem was, I got to know about it a few hours ago. You see, I said I did a stupid thing on my birthday in anger, right? I couldn't see why my parents kept favoring Margaret in everything that she did, whether or not it was right, so I went ahead and wrote what happened on my birthday on Facebook. I haven't even bothered hiding my identity or that my parents' identity because I wanted people to know them and see them for what they were, that they are treating me very, very unfairly, guys. Maybe then they would treat me like they treated Margaret, or so I thought. Even Aunt Emma wasn't so happy with me. She understood that I was upset, but she hated that I made a family business public, and now I feel so alone. I honestly wonder what will happen once my parents get here. Knowing them, they'll make it a big deal. I'm dreading the entire experience already. Update number 2. This is most likely the first time I've ever got into an argument with my parents, and it sucks, because I hate being on bad terms with people, which is why I usually forego results and faults and push it to the back of my mind. Let's just say that my parents are not happy with me at all, and that if they visit me anytime soon, I'll be shocked. My parents had visited during the weekend, and so had Kayla, but we'll get into him later. They sat me down and asked why I had done what I did, and I apologized, saying that I did it in my anger. It didn't even matter, because I yelled multiple times. No matter what I did or said, I know I made a mistake, but I was upset at the time, and didn't really think about the consequences of my actions. It was another reason why I chose Facebook, because at the time I thought nobody would see the post. It turns out that my post was now popular and was being addressed on multiple Facebook groups and communities. To make the matter worse, my family had found out about the post through a neighbor, and the person I'd rather not mention, went ahead and affirmed the story since I was not home at the time. It wouldn't take a genius to realize that things could be really bad for my parents if the post got even more viral. I checked the stats and was shocked at how much engagement one post could get. I even had a few direct messages asking about my well-being, and while I didn't respond, I was really just straight up overwhelmed. If the wrong people saw my post, my parents could lose their credibility and even their job. I made sure to delete my post and even wrote up one to counter it. I made sure to include the fact that my parents were not financially stable and were only doing what they thought was best for me and my family at large. It was not a sure solution to the problem we were currently facing, but it was better than nothing. Then there was my aunt's reaction to everything, which hurt as much as my parents. She was upset about everything and did not speak to me properly for days. The only person that was around to comfort me was Caleb. He was on a short break and decides to visit, and when he heard about everything, he asked what happened. In the process of telling him the entire story, I began to cry. He took me out to eat to make me feel better, and yeah, it helped a bit. My aunt started talking to me a day before Caleb left for school. I'm sure that he's responsible for that, and I can already tell that we'll be good friends. He's a nice cousin, and as mortifying as the circumstances around our official meeting were, I'm glad I got a chance to talk to him. My aunt knows the full story now, and she's very upset with my parents, but she made sure to give me a long pep talk as well, because my reaction was extreme. Things are okay now, but I'm still anxious because of the entire thing. Whenever I hear that something has gone viral in school, my ears perk up, and I silently hope it's not my deleted post. Anytime my aunt mentions my parents, or if they randomly pop up in my head, I just feel restless and anxious. Is this fear? Will this pass, or will things get worse? Is there anything else I can do to make this seem right? Update number 3. My worst fears have been realized. My parents visited again, and this time asking me what I had to do this for. Making another post on Facebook? I told them that I deleted the previous one and put up a new one to explain why I was asked to leave the house on my birthday. I don't know how I had managed to make the situation worse, but I did. Some platforms said I was most likely forced to write that post by my parents. Others talked about how traumatized I was and how my parents needed to take me to therapy. The more I read, the worse it got, and I asked my parents what they wanted me to do about it, and all they told me was to not post anything else. They said they would try sorting everything out themselves. Let's not forget the yelling and insulting, and I tried to ignore them, but with the way things are, I don't think my parents can talk to me without either of those two being involved. They were angry, and I understand that. I just wish that they would understand that I wasn't making them seem horrible to the public on purpose. It was hard, not doing anything when I knew everything was my fault. I even talked to Caleb, and he said to listen to my parents so as not to have any more problems with them in the future. Well, a lot of my new friends know about my post and how my parents treated me on my birthday. I hate that they know. Some were indifferent about it, but my friends were acting extra concerned, and it was strange. Let's not even start with a text I got from former classmates. They kept asking if I was okay and saying that they would visit me during the holiday. Some had even dissed my parents, and I had to tell them not to since it wasn't my parents' fault for doing what they did. At some point, I got really tired of waiting and tried calling. I had not heard anything from my parents, and I wanted to know if they had found a solution to everything, or if I could do anything to help them. I could meet the people that mattered and make them understand that I was happy with my parents' decision to send me to live with my aunt, and that would not even be a lie. Every other person on the internet, well, they can do what they want, gossip until they were tired of doing it, because, well, that's all that they're really good for, am I right? Well, anyways, after all, it wasn't rare for people to stick their noses in other people's beeswax. Till it escalated. I just had to wait for the next best thing to capture their attention. My parents had not taken their call, and it worsened my anxiety. It clearly meant bad news, so I begged my aunt to call instead while I left a few text and voicemails. It was just yesterday that my aunt called me to her room, saying that she had something important to tell me. It was bad news, and I was able to tell from her tone and facial expression. My mom had lost her job. She was a secretary because her boss was not interested in any bad publicity. I begged my aunt to let me speak to my parents, but the next thing I heard shattered me. My parents didn't want me from this time on until the entire issue was resolved. I know she put it mildly because her eyes did not meet mine while she spoke. I had also overheard her speaking to them later that night, saying they were being too harsh with their decision. I didn't cry. Margaret had called me and told me everything, and when I had asked if I could do anything, my sister had told me to stay put because I caused more than enough damage. It had affected an interview that she had gone for, and according to Margaret, there was a good chance that she would have gotten the job if not for the rumors circulating around town. Yesterday, I had fallen asleep thinking the worst of myself. I had believed that my parents had sent me away because all I did was cause trouble, despite it not being my intention. Well, this morning, however, it was different. Now, I believe that I've made a mistake, but that my parents were the only driving factor behind the mistake. If only they had cared even a little, we most likely would not have been here in this situation, and because of that, I'm going to leave them to their fate. If they both lose their jobs, I would not be concerned about it. After all, they had kicked me out of the house and told me not to do anything. So I don't care what happens to them anymore. I'm sick and tired of apologizing and trying to make things right after a single mistake. They've been making mistakes with me and have not even done half of what I did, so why bother with myself? Update number 4. Hey guys, it's me. I have some bad news. My mom is sick. Margaret, she has plans to leave the house because it's no longer conductive. And my dad is struggling to make ends meet, especially now that my mom is not feeling well. My aunt had come to me and asked me to go home and make people around me see what I was fine with living with her, which was my initial plan. But I had told her that I wasn't going to do so and gave my reasons well. One thing I really like about Aunt Emma is her understanding nature. She got me immediately, but it did not stop her from asking me to reconsider for days. She's fine with my decision now, and I'm glad she stopped. I'd almost caved, not because I thought my parents deserved my help, but because she asked me to help them. Caleb, on the other hand, was more than supportive of my decision. I think I've accidentally made him dislike my family because any time they come up during the conversations, his usual cheerful expression fades away. He told me that he would have left the house sooner if he had been treated that way. He's also met Margaret, who came to visit us at some point. He was rude to her, of course, but I don't think my sister really cared. She was the only one who informed us about the situation in my house. My dad has lost his previous job and his work at the company that pays him less now. He had to take the job because it was difficult for him to get hired at his age. And my mom had gotten sick due to stress, according to the doctor. She was mostly on bed rest and is now recovering, which is a good thing. As for Margaret, she had mentioned leaving the house and staying with a friend. Aunt Emma had told her that my parents needed her more now than ever, but Margaret had mentioned Angela and her well-being. My aunt sends Margaret money weekly for Angela's upkeep now, and I don't know if Margaret will still leave or stay and help my parents at home. I'm almost certain it's the former. It's Margaret, after all. I just want to say that things at my aunt's house are distinctively better than at my birth house. She isn't my mom, but make sure to check up on me at school and work and overall my well-being. Even my grades have improved because both Caleb and my aunt noticed that I wasn't doing very well in school and got me a tutor. We go to outings once in a while, and I can't remember being so happy. I just wish my parents and sister the best of luck. They need it, after all. Final updates. Update number 5. Hey guys, I didn't think I'd post again, but since I am, I'll make this short. My parents came over to see me, and my mom was slimmer than I remembered, and Dad looked stressed out. Apparently, Margaret had left the house, like I knew she would, and I was needed back home to help out with the little things. The rumors had died down, and now that the few people who cared, my parents did not face so much backlash, though they were still struggling. I didn't care to see them, but they had done something different this time. My parents apologized to me. Well, I was surprised when they blamed themselves for everything that went down. They had told me that they would be fine with whatever decision I made, which convinced me that they were being honest. I don't know what caused the change of heart, but I was happy about it. At the same time, I wasn't going to leave my aunt's place, so I told them I would not be going with them, and they left. Some would say I've not totally forgiven them, and that may be true because a huge part of me still does not get bothered about it. Well, once again, I wish my family good luck, but if they think I'll be leaving a place where I'm extremely happy to stay with them, they better wake up and smell reality. And their new reality is this miserable life where they're just trying to make ends meet after being left abandoned by their favorite daughter. And it's funny how now they want me back, huh? The daughter they abandoned, for all I care, they deserve this for the years of favoritism they put me through. As for my sister, she's out there doing odd jobs and struggling as a single mom. This is what her life decision has brought her to. But honestly, I could not be even more at peace in my life than I am right now. I'm very grateful to my aunt for taking me in when my own family abandoned me. Also, thank you to everybody who supported me through all the hard times when I felt the most alone.